Hello, everybody. I just wanted to have a quick second to let you guys know how much it means to me that you are my sponsor. SRP Studios, The Real Hernando, The Rhythm Section, Hardwick, Heating, Cooling, and Air Quality, Estes, Grading, Hodge Homes, Adair, Honey Farm, Miss Hippie Eats, Phones R Us, Ross, Sod Farms and Landscaping, Ivy Rain, Women's Clinic, Tonic POS by Tyler Young, and Coffee Central. Thank you guys so much for being a sponsor. If you'd like to be a sponsor, go to my website now, motivatecoachcamp.com, and click on the button. Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Motivate with Coach Camp. I, of course, am your host, Coach Camp, and as you can see, we are down here in these amazing, fantastic, stupendous studios of SRP with Mr. Derek Michaud. All right, guys. Hey, look, every so often, I like to bring in someone that's got a lot of background, but then also has some likenesses to me. So this individual, I know he has actually had his hand in a lot of different things in life. And now at this point, it's about motivation. It's about inspiration. It's about connecting with individuals to help them become a better version of themselves. There are a lot of ways we can do that. Sometimes it's about education in a classroom. Sometimes it is inspiration through living your life in a way that makes other people inspired to do things great as well. Well, this individual probably has done any and all of those things. He even has a podcast. They talk about literally anything on earth, whatever you can come up with. Those kind of conversations sometimes are very thought-provoking. But the thing that we're going to really hit on is how he got into martial arts. He is a Jiu Jitsu trainer. He owns his own gym. His name is Mr. Ricky Pike. He's the coach, owner of All Heart Jiu Jitsu. I wanted to make sure I read that correctly. And he was actually brought to me through a mutual friend, told me all about this guy, said he was amazing. I should bring him in. And guess what? He's here today. So at this time, please welcome with me, Mr. Ricky Pike. How are you, sir?
Good, man. I'm glad to be here.
Thank
How are you?
Man, I'm doing great. As you can see, the weather's getting a little better. And I'm always a weather guy.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be nice today. It's supposed to be in the 60s.
I know.
This weekend, it's going to be in the 70s.
Yeah.
I'm going to have me a bonfire tomorrow.
Yeah. I needed some of this. We had the 900-mile-per-hour winds recently. It was just crazy. So I'm a weather person, and my mood a lot of times is like if I was living in Washington State, I don't know that I'd be in a great mood all the time. Mm-hmm. I need sunshine. I need warmth. And that it's happening. So I feel great about that. Well, thank you for coming down to the studio today. There's a lot of stuff I want to hit on, a lot of things I want to talk about with you, but we always like to start at the beginning, kind of get a little feel for our guests, see where they've come from. So tell me a little bit about where you grew up and what family life was like, brothers, sisters, mom, dad, any and all in between.
No, I was born in Memphis, born at the Med. They almost killed me, but I'm here.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, they after the nurse gave us all the babies strep, and the little ward we were at, and out of 11 babies, only 2 survived, and you're looking at one of them.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
It's almost like a version of a yellow fever breakout.
Yeah,
good grief.
Serious as a heart attack. So I always wondering what ever happened to other person. Just curiosity.
The lone other survivor.
The lone other survivor. But lived in Memphis, and my dad was Navy. We moved around. I've been to Guam and San Diego and Florida and Hawaii and all that. And then he got out when my brother was born, and we came back to Memphis, and then we moved out to the country. We moved out to Fayette County and lived there for many years. And it's just me and my brother and my mom and dad and my grandparents. And so it was pretty good. It was a good life. It was good, simple life. And,
yeah.
and then I'm at the martial arts, man. I've been, Joe, just, all the Van Damme movies and Ninja Turtles. And, our generation grew up pretty good, for movies, and wanting to get into this kind of stuff. We had the movies, we had the TV shows, we had it, with Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee, looking back on the old Bruce Lee movies and stuff. And
Saturday morning Kung Fu theater. Yeah,
and then I actually grew up to be about the same height and size of Bruce Lee. Kind of made me kind of feel like, hey, when I was in my teens, I wanted to be as ripped as Bruce Lee. And,
yeah. So how old is your brother? Is he younger than you?
Yeah, he's younger than me, about 4.5 years.
4.5 years. So you also had a punching bag. You had somebody you could practice your moves on.
Yeah. We broke so many beds that parents got mad, and just because we like pro wrestling too, we loved it.
Okay.
And I'm a big pro wrestling.
Practice all those things.
Yeah, we broke so many beds. They just started putting a mattress on the ground. It's like, we're not giving you no more beds.
That makes sense. Yeah, you just cut out the middleman right there.
That's it.
So growing up as a Navy brat, military brat, as they call it, that's the term for it. Was your whole childhood your dad was in the Navy?
No, just until I was 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when I turned 5 and my brother was born, and then it was a whole scenario right there. My dad was thinking about getting out because he was like, man, I missed all, like, like my first words, my first walk, everything he missed. And he's like, I don't want to do that with my brother. And then we almost stayed in Guam. And I think about that sometimes. Like, man, my whole life would be so much different.
It would be very different, I would imagine.
Living in paradise. But but my great aunt got really sick, and so we moved back to help take care of her.
Oh, okay. That's what brought y'all back. So your family, you had other family here in the Mid-South area.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was curious about that. And the reason I ask is I was in the military for a short stint and did 4 years in the Air Force. And while I was in, I come across people that were in the military with me that they were military brats growing up. And they moved and lived everywhere. So like every 2, 3, 4 years, they're relocating, sometimes completely out of the country. And that reset of having to be able to recreate who you are to the people that you're around and make new friends and then adjust again, that's a tough life for some, and then others thrive. So I was curious about that. So it sounds like, though, that you had a pretty good foundation here in town, grew up from the age of 5 in the Memphis area. And at some point, you started watching and liking some martial arts stuff. So did you start into some version of martial arts as a young person? Did your mom or dad get you involved in it?
I started doing karate when I was 15. Started going to, I found it, and I don't even remember how I found it. And then it was real hardcore. We just beat the hell out of each other,
So you really didn't have structure, huh?
Well, no, he was structured, but okay. he was legit, black belt in karate. Okay. But we were just, it was a hard nose. It was, it wasn't pulling punches. It wasn't, point sparring. We're barely touching. No,
full contact.
Full contact.
And how old were you at that time?
15.
Oh, okay. So you're older. I'm picturing a 9-year-old getting blasted, but okay, I got you. So at 15, then you really start getting into it. So is that the first time though that you got into some structured, actual, formal training?
Yeah, I wanted to do it sooner, but we just didn't had the opportunity. And then I seen, and I watched, of course, the first UFCs and stuff. I was like, man, all right, the karate guy's going to win, blah, blah. And then of course, Hoist tied everybody up. And I'm like, I want to learn that too. And I seen that. And back in 98, I actually there was a karate and grappling tournament. Chad Chilcutt put it on. And I put myself in the grappling side just to do it. I was like, I can do this. And I won second place, not just out of grit and determination.
And how long had you been training or, working in that before you had that first competition?
I had never done anything in the grappling side. It was just, I just said, I want to do it.
Isn't that the Gracie family that kind of made that popular early on, if I'm not mistaken? Yeah. I was young then. I know my biggest influence was Ralph Macchio from Karate Kid. Everybody tried to do the crane kick. I don't think is that a real kick? Nobody really does that, or do they do that?
Yeah,
they could do that.
Vitor,
been waiting to see that one in the UFC.
Yeah, Vitor Belfort got kicked and knocked out with it.
Dang, I had to look that one up.
Lito Machida knocked him out.
Huh.
Anderson Silva got him too.
Yeah. So you get into it. You come in second place. Is that kind of like the moment that you got hooked? You're like, oh man, I love this stuff.
Yeah, I wanted to do it. Didn't know where, and kind of looking back, I'm kind of glad it's a torn spot. I'm like, man, what could I have done if I could have started that early? I might have kept myself out of some trouble. But if you look at that generation of people that trained like that, man, they're all broken now. Like they're hurt because because a lot of all they had back then, and even when I first started was, there's a blessing right now we have in this community. But you can go all the places, black belts and brown belts on the mats and purple belts all over about any gym you want to go to. When I first started, you had blue belts teaching. A lot of times you had blue belts teaching classes, and that's it. All over the country, that's all you had was blue belts, and you might have a purple belt show up. You might have one, and then you'd have a floating, like we had, hoist come around and stuff like that when I first started.
So give a little bit of a background on that for somebody that's never been into martial arts. So like top belt to the bottom belt, or where we start to where you want to end. And is this the same for karate, jiu-jitsu, taekwondo, etc.?
Each one's got a different belts and everything.
Okay.
You got with the jiu-jitsu, you actually have the coral belt, which after like 50 years you can get one of them.
Okay.
So I got a little while to go.
You're a sensei master.
Yeah. I got a little while to go on that, but of course you got the black belts, and then on jiu-jitsu side you got the brown belts, purple, blue, and white for adults, and then you got the belts, different belts for kids. Traditionally, actually, the Brazilian Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, they just had they had a Navy belt, and then they had a blue belt, and they had a white belt. And like Navy was an instructor, and then they had a white belt, and that was it. They didn't. When they came over to the United States, they want to try to be more like traditional, what like everybody else is doing, and you can make money too that way. If you have more belts, you can make more money. But
sure, yeah. I had a foreign exchange student here with us for a little while, and she's from Brazil. And then when she did anything over here, by the way, so like we went bowling, we go putt, just doing some fun stuff. Everything she did was at a solid 10 on a scale of 10. And it was like she's swinging a putter like she's driving it down the middle of the fairway. And you got to have a light touch. And then she goes back home and she gets into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I'm watching videos of her. And she's slamming dudes. And I'm like, see, that was what you were meant to do your whole life, because you are a full get it person. But then I did ask her, I said, when you're in Brazil, do they just drop the Brazilian and you're just doing jiu-jitsu again because you're already in Brazil? It's like a redundant thing. But no, she says, no, it's still Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So you guys, you started out into jiu-jitsu. You never started out in a different classification, like karate as an example.
Yeah. I mean, I started in karate when I was 15.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason why I make that,
I did that for about 3.5 years, and my instructor retired. And then, then I kind of was like a floating Ronin, kind of like I said, I went to hit this gym, and then I didn't find that, because it was like my friend's instructor, his uncle was our instructor, and his dad was in it, his brother was in it, actually both his brothers one time, and then it was kind of like a family thing. And then I drove over, and I couldn't find that family connection, and it took me a long time. And then back in 2008, I seen a flyer at the Baskin Robbins of all places about some jiu-jitsu, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna do this, And I called in a number, and they're like, yeah. So the day after Christmas, I showed up for an open mat, and of course, who shows up the day after Christmas? All the killers and, just the hardcores. And I got the hell beat out of me, absolutely. And I was like, this is cool. They can teach me something.
This is cool, yeah.
I got beat up. This is awesome. And of course, that's just my mentality. I'm like, they are able to do something to me. So I'm like, hey, I know I can learn something from them and then I was hooked from there. And
That's an interesting perspective. So I want to put a kind of little bow on that then. So you had mentioned lightly as we were talking about you had some trouble in your youth, and you were questioning, had you got into this sooner, maybe you would have not had the trouble you had. So I don't want to ask you unless you want to talk about the trouble you had, but the reality is this, and this is something that I have come across several times over, is people that maybe are misguided. Not necessarily, I'm not talking about from the parents, I'm just talking about mentally, like they get around the wrong crowd, they hang around the wrong friends, make wrong choices, whatever that is. It a lot of times comes from a lack of self-discipline. It's not always a lack of training. It's a lack of self-discipline. They know right from wrong. They just make the wrong choice. And just like the military did for me, okay, I was a bit of a knucklehead, shocker to all the people out there that know me, I know. But the military definitely lined me up. It gave me a sense of understanding towards responsibility, completing a task. I think that different versions of martial arts can do the same thing for a person, just like boxing. You can see a lot of people come off the streets, become a boxer. Now they're more disciplined. Now they understand their role. Did you find that getting into martial arts at that age, after you've had some of these problems, that it did help align you with better self-discipline, better self-awareness to be able to grow you as a person versus just going through the motions?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, because after, I don't mind saying, I used to drink a lot. I mean, I drank on the way to work. I mean, I had them those Sky Blues and stuff. I'd drink about half of one, and I fill the rest up full of vodka, and then I'd drink that on the way to work. I mean, I was functioning alcoholic. I mean, I could leave the bar at 6 in the morning, go to the after-hour places, bring a half a gallon of vodka and a gallon of orange juice, and leave when it was gone, and go to work the next morning and drive straight to work. I was just,
Wow.
I was a completely functioning alcoholic. I could, my tolerance was so high, it was ridiculous. But when I got into martial arts, and I got into Jiu Jitsu, and I got into MMA and started doing that and started training, and like, man, I can fight. I can do this. And it's like, why do I want to put something in my body that's going to destroy it? Like, you know, the alcohol is just going to, it's going to bring me down. I don't have very good control over it because I have good days. You know, I can drink, you know, just fine. And I'm always one of them person, I'm always thirsty. So I mean, if I got something in front of me, whatever's in front of me. If it's liquor, I'm drinking it. If it's Dr. Pepper, which everybody knows, I'm going to have a drink it, whatever's in front of me.
Got a Dr. Pepper hat.
Yeah.
Not a surprise you like Dr. Pepper, huh?
Yeah. And I should have worn my Dr. Pepper hoodie too. But we had, you know, it was, you know, it's one of them things that, you know, it took that discipline of like, okay, look, I'm going to focus on myself. I can do this. I can be really good at this, you know. And so I can turn around and I was like, but if I turn around, I'm over here destroying my body, you know. Dr. Pepper is not the best thing to drink, but it's my only crutch anymore. That's it. But
we all got our vices. No judgment over here.
And that's it. And that's the only thing I can say. I mean, I don't do drugs. I don't do anything. I don't even drink anymore. I haven't drank in probably over 12, 13 years now.
Wow.
But it's maybe longer now. I was trying to figure it out the other day, but yeah, I didn't want to put that in me anymore. I was like, man, I don't have good control over it. You know, if I have good days, I'll be good. And then one day, something really upsets my brain. I'm drinking a whole lot, and it's just, you know, just a mess, and turn into just a terrible situation. So,
I have 2 questions on that. So, were you aware whenever you were having you said you're a functional alcoholic? Were you aware that that was a problem, or was it just a part of your life? Or can you think about that?
I knew it wasn't good.
Okay.
I was, like you said, probably might have been around the wrong people, or everybody was kind of like, you know, I mean, it was to the point. It was, man, I would walk out of the liquor store with like grocery sacks, but I had a bunch of friends around me and stuff, and we were all like just hanging out and partying and just raising hell. But it was to the point where it's like, looking back, it's like, what was I doing? It was like, I had a hamburger. I would eat hamburger helper without hamburger meat because I didn't have the money for hamburger meat, but my freezer had full of vodka and Crown and Jack. And
priorities.
And, you know, my priorities was totally sideways, you know, and, you know, so I'm just eating noodles to eat, you know, and it was crazy looking back on it. It's like, you know, and then I'm looking back, I was like, man, how much money did I spend? Like thousands of dollars, like literally thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars on it of wasted, you know.
So there's a couple things here we can unpack. First of all, intentionality to life. And I talk about that quite a bit on my podcast. Actually, I do speeches. I go around and speak at anywhere from colleges, high schools to seminars. Just depends on what I'm called to. And a big part of it, along with self-discipline, is intentionality, having the forethought to consider what your actions are actually doing and what the outcomes are going to actually be. So often we find ourselves, and this is just day to day, and it's not a knock on anyone, this is just human nature, where we are going through the motions, and then it takes time of reflection, like what you're talking about right now, and you reflect back and you're like, man, I was making these mistakes. Now, that's only important that you reflect on that if the intention is that you're not going to repeat that later. So reflecting on it, recognizing it's a problem, but then going back to the problem, that's still a problem. But you clearly made the step in the right direction. So 12, 15 years, been a long time. So going back to, you said in 2008, you saw a flyer at a Baskin Robbins. How old were you in 2008, if you don't mind me asking?
So it'll be 2008, be 29.
So you're 29 years old, and you said you started at 15 with your first experiences, exposure, if you will, and then all those years go by. Were you doing anything from that 15 years essentially in between 15 to 29, were you doing anything with martial arts at that time?
For about 3.5, I did the karate, and then for a little while, so about to turn 18, I stopped, and then like I said, I kind of floated around. I went to I would stop training. I mean, I would train, but I would like home train, whatever, for a little bit. I always had like a punching bag, like just use it to, if I had a bad day, I just beat the brakes off that punching bag. So, but then I go find another gym, and I'd be there for a little bit, and then I went to one gym, and everything was good for a little while, and then it was at a church and everything. Of course, and I was like, cool, this is kind of like what I was, because before it was in the church and everything. So I was like, man, maybe this is it. And then after a few months in, the instructor's like, all right, you're gonna spar our number one's, this guy here is his, assistant instructor. I'm like, okay, I don't care. I ain't scared to spar anybody. I'll spar Mike Tyson. Not saying I'll beat him, but but I'll do it because it'll make me better. I challenged my instructor I didn't challenge, but I was like, hey, I want to spar. He's like, what, do you think you can beat me? I said, no. I said, but it's going to make me better. And so I've never been scared of, sparring or rolling with anybody.
Why do you think that is? What gave you that strength?
It's just that mentality. It's like, if I can turn around, if I can go get somebody who's better than me, or like just does something different, I know I can pick up on it. And I've actually rolled with people, and they're like, what? And then they catch me something, like, okay. And then I'll put myself back in that position that catching me again. Like, what are you doing, Ricky? Why do you keep going? I'm like, because I'm figuring it out. I said, leave me alone. I said, let me just keep, choke me to death right here. I don't care. But I'm going to figure out the little details of how I need to be before I can defend myself right here. I'm like, okay, all right, I need a little more adjustment. And just how my mind works is just, I gotta figure it out. And one bloop, okay, I'm good. And then now you ain't going to catch me with that no more. But
I wrote this down in here too, because I had a feeling our conversation would lead this direction, and it already is. And that is, what life skills do you think martial arts in general, just training, and then of course in interacting, sparring, matches, what does that give you for life? And you're talking about it right here. This is why I got to put bows on these moments as you're going. So many things I think about prior to a conversation, and you're hitting those things. This is where there's so much value for somebody. It's not just about your journey in martial arts. It's what tools are you giving yourself, but then you can share with others. So here it is, you're embracing the suck, as they say. A person going through a tough time, they wouldn't always say, hey, look, I want to deal with, job loss and financial issues. I wouldn't want to deal with relationship problems. You don't necessarily want to sign up for that stuff. But when it comes, and life will come at you in a lot of ways, what have you done in your lifetime to give yourself some skill set to be able to fight back? And that's what you were doing. So through your alcoholism, and through some of those other years, but prior to, whenever you finally get to this other age, 29, and you're now going towards, I'm going to actually start to pursue this, man, you'd already given yourself so many skills that maybe or maybe not that you had paid attention to. You're talking about you had a problem with it. Instead of shying away from the problem, you went right back to the problem. You said, give me the headlock again. They get you another headlock. You're choking out. They're like, what you doing, dog? You're like, hey, I'm figuring this out. And then all of a sudden, I bet you figure it out, don't you? And now you're stronger. Now you're better. And now you can teach that. So as you continue at 29, what's the path look like for Ricky as far as more matches, training? What brings you down the road of this is going to be a career move for me? Because it can be recreational at any age. I have a good friend that's my age. He's almost 50. And he just recently, a few years ago, got into Taekwondo and has been going up the ranks of the belts. And he just loves it. It's the challenge. It's the personal challenge. He's not trying to challenge other people. He wants to see how good he can be, which is really where it should start. Now, it's good to have competition, but the competition usually has to start right here. You have to face your own demons and go forward and try to be better every day. So where does it start to become more of a career path for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, it's always, I tell everybody to come in, it's a challenge with yourself. I was like, you have people come in like, man, I don't know if I'm getting better. I was like, look back, if you've been here 6 months, look back 6 months ago. if the person you were 6 months ago walked in the gym right now, what would you do? He's like, I would recommend. I was like, yeah. So you're getting better, but everybody's coming up at you at the same level. So it's hard to you to tell. I said, but look back on that. You're only challenging yourself, and so that's the big thing, like age, like my friend Ralph, he started at 62 doing jiu-jitsu. He's like 70 now and like doing jiu-jitsu and doing tournaments and stuff. So it's no age. It's just get in there and have fun and challenge yourself and try to be the best you can be, and for sure.
Limitations are often set in our own mind versus our own reality. The reality is you can probably do a whole lot more. I don't want to put a percentage on it because then it seems like I'm being not genuine, but a whole lot more than you give yourself credit for being able to do. And it doesn't matter what that is. And in this case, we're talking about obviously being able to train in jiu-jitsu, but you could be wanting to run a 5K and you may think to yourself, that's just too far. So you've already put barriers up that is going to be hard to break down because in your own mind, you've already decided that you can't do it. This leads to a great point, and we're going to get to the kids because, man, that's really my favorite. I'm a mentor to kids. I'm with the Hope Center, and it's a whole mentorship program for 6th graders through 12th graders, and it's just positivity and instilling in them the belief that if they choose to be better, they can be better. It's up to you all the time. There's a lot of exterior factors that can play into the ability to move quickly, but you have to make the decision that you're not going to stop going. So recently, I had a guest on, which reminded me of Ricky Pike. That's you. And she's telling me that she has started into some, I want to say jiu-jitsu. I think it is jiu-jitsu. I don't know if it's with you or not, though. No, it's not with you. So she has started into some of this training, and she lost both her legs and not so many years ago due to some disease. So she has both of her legs, bilateral amputee, and she's getting into martial arts. I'm just saying, how many people would say, well, she can't do anything? Tell her that and see what happens. She might put you in a chokehold. So tell me about some of the moments where you've seen these breakthroughs because you yourself probably had some doubts at times, or maybe not, because it does sound like you were pretty willing to take on a challenge. But if it wasn't for you, someone else where they had those doubts and then they suddenly have that breakthrough moment, because I think that's something people need to hear is how do you get to the breakthrough moment? And that could be different for everyone, but just give us an example if you got something.
Yeah, I mean, I had something recently. I had a young man, I'll do private lessons and I'll do, whatever. Now we were working with a young man and he was just turning around and, he was like, I showed him a move and he's like, I can't do that. I was like, yeah, you can. And we worked it. And finally he started hitting it. And he did a few times like, I thought you said you couldn't do it. And he kind of looked at me, kind of grinned. I was like, you can't, never can. Sometimes you got body limitations, so you can't do exactly, but you got to, adjust,
Bingo.
And adjust and adapt for you, my knees and shoulders aren't the greatest in the whole wide world. But I can adjust and move, I joke around. I teach small man jiu-jitsu, but it's always, but there's always somebody bigger than you. There's always somebody bigger. There's always somebody stronger. So like, even if you're taking the concept of, if you go in there, well, I'm the biggest, strongest, baddest, there's somebody that is bigger.
Always.
We have one of our guys, Dominic, he's a good kid. And we went to a tournament and the referee knew me. And he was like, where did you get this big guy? And he was about to go against this big Viking looking dude. This dude looked like he was like 6'6", and he was like 275. And he was like, what about that guy? He's like, I'm not, but he's one of the ones. He's a sponge, and that young man is. I can put him with a 5-year-old and roll with him. He's 6 foot 250. But I can put him with a 5-year-old and he can roll with him. It's soft and just let him work and move around and fall over.
And how old did you say he is?
He's 21.
That's a really special talent to be able to control yourself like that. To not go too far, hurt someone when you know what your own power and strength is. So having those breakthrough moments is key because that also gives you confidence in other areas of your life. And then that also should make person question, how many times have I given up on something that all it took was just a few more reps, a few more times to go at it? So often I think that people forget that the repetition of something is what can make the greatness. You give up real easy, real quick, man, you're probably shortchanging yourself way more often than not. One of my favorite quotes is that the water cuts a hole through the rock, not because of its power, but because of its persistence. And I think that's so true for people. If you just continue, if it's a passion of yours, you have a heart for it, and that's the key too. You have to have a heart for it. Man, the possibilities can be endless. So at what time or what year do you get your own gym and you decide that you're going to start doing this and coaching and training?
I guess, what was it? About 7 or 8 years ago, I was working with a friend of mine in our gym, and I met a couple guys, and they were coming in cross-training, and I was helping. And so I met them, and then we turned around, and I met them at a fight, and I said, hey, I can come down there, work with y'all jiu-jitsu side. I could see there were some holes there. And he's like, all right, yeah, cool. And so went down there, and as Jeff did, and went down there to the Brawlers Den and started working with them and started teaching and kind of helping out. And then, I just seen the young men that, they had a passion for it and they wanted to learn. And so I turned around and kept on. I never stopped coming down. I was working in Bahia. I had to go drive to Arlington, Tennessee every day to go home, which my house was over there Macon, but I was living most of the time with my girlfriend at the time and up there in Arlington. And so, but then I'd drive all the way down there to Independence, Mississippi, and
that's a haul for people outside the area. Somebody's in England right now watching this. Just know that's about an hour and a half, hour, depending on traffic, right?
Yeah.
One way.
Yeah. I drive 20, 25 minutes over there to start training, and then about 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, then I drive an hour home every night. And I was like, man, this is getting old, and so I actually bought a house down in Senatobia just to be close, and then we turned around, we moved the gym to Senatobia, and actually about 3 blocks away from my house. And so I ride my bike sometimes.
It's a big difference for you.
It's a big difference. And I just kept going. We had a little.
Do you know what year that was? Sorry.
2019 is when 2019 is when I bought the house, and then we moved the gym to Senatobia. And then a couple of years later, we had a little kind of splitting of the gyms, whatever. And I just took over for just being all heart and completely all heart from then on. And I haven't stopped and kept on going. Last year, I went full time doing jiu-jitsu. Jordan Howe, he taught the kids and did our striking and stuff, but he had to call in to be a missionary, and he actually went to Nepal and was being a missionary over there. Well, he taught my kids, and so like schedule wise, I work for asphalt company, and sometimes who knows what time I get off. Sometimes I get off at 4:30. Some days I get off at 10:30. It never know. And so I was like, well, I don't want to lose a gym. I don't want to lose the kid program. I mean, I might be able to maybe I can squeeze in and get the adult, but I know I'd lose the kids program because I couldn't be consistent. And the day I put in my notice, I was late getting there for the kids. I was like, well, I did what I'm supposed to do. And so I was like, well, I'm done. I said, I'm just going to do this. I was like, I'm going to swing them dice and see what happens. And and give her hell. That's all. That's all I know to do.
So you made the decision, go all in. We like to call that cannonballing. We have a whole podcast called Cannonballing because we believe once you are called to something, you feel that passion in your heart, and this is the thing you're supposed to do. You can't just go up to it and put your toe in and be like, well, let me just try it. You need to go all in. And that sometimes can be very scary. Trust me, I've done it many times. Sometimes I've been successful, sometimes I haven't. But to your point earlier, when I'm in that headlock of life, I'm trying to learn, what do I need to do better next time? How do I get out of this? If this happens again, how do I fix this problem? So I've tried, I don't want to say never because that seems over speaking. I try not to shy away from the difficult moments that come because I want to learn from those moments as well of everything. So you cannonball this thing, and now you're in there working with the kids. What is your reasoning? What is your heart? I don't want to assume what it is that draws you to the fact that that's something they need.
I mean, one was just because the parents and the stuff. I mean, like for our small community, we didn't have a lot of that stuff. A lot for the kids and stuff like that. For like, especially like kind of stuff, the Jiu Jitsu side and the wrestling side and the MMA and having the whole be in a place where you can learn it all. And like they didn't have that. A lot of the parents like, man, I wish I had this when I was kids. So they want to put their kids in it, and just having a place for it. There's so many that's helped them. I've got people that come out of their shell and being able to touch like, hey, you've done so much for my child. It's like, I'm like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. It reaffirms it, over and over again. Every time you turn around or somebody comes back like, my child was doing better when he was here. Mm-hmm. So we're going to get back. We're going to go home, or he's going to be here. I was like, okay, so let's do it. It's a absolute blessing, to be able to see them helped, move these kids and help them, and see them grow. Even like, I have some that are like super, super hyper, and it's okay. I joke around, but I have more patience with kids than I do adults. Like adults know better. They know what they.
I was going to say, there's definitely better. A difference on that for sure. Yeah,
adults know better. And like kids are kids. And kids are, especially when they're young, they're hyper. Hey, they're kids. I was the same way. I mean, when my mom was telling the story a while back. Like when I was a baby, I was like 1, 2 years old. I would run until I passed out, and I would just hit the ground, pow. And they would lay a blanket over me, and like wherever I laid, I swear I slept. Because if they picked me up, I was angry, and so they would just leave me, just boom, like whatever. And like, so I mean, I was like, man, I can't get mad at these kids for being hyper. I'm like, that's kind of, I'm like, because I was the same way, and I'm like, that's not right. Yeah. So I just try to, adapt from it, and I had one young man the other day when he first started. He's gotten better with it, but like he would do the move, and then he'd make a lap around the whole gym, and then he'd come back and like, all right, it's your brother's turn, and then he'd take off and he'd come out and all right, it's your turn to do it, and like and accepting that, okay, he needed to burst that energy instead of like yell at him and go, wow, you got to yourself. Like, no, it's okay. It's you got to take each kid on a person to person basis. You can't put them all in this one little box and squeeze them together and go, well, you're going to get this. It's kind of like that meme with all the people, like you got the elephant and the fish and the monkey and the, everything all lined up. Like, okay, y'all climb this tree. Like, wait a minute, not everybody can do that, so you have to adjust and adapt, and into your mindset and game plan of each kid on it. Because some like, and I got some, they're super hyper, but I can turn around like, okay, let's, I got a brand new student. I said, help, you've been doing this a while. Help focus for me and help them be a good partner, and they will be.
Man, that is brilliant. You actually do. I don't know where it comes from. I just think about, I guess maybe what it is, I would think about what I would be interested in if I was a listener. And you've just hit on several things I was going to ask you about, which part of being able to be an effective coach, instructor, teacher, mentor, you name it, is being able to be prospectively objective and recognize that every individual is wired different. And if you go into a situation thinking that things have to be black and white and it's going to only be this way and only be that way, you're going to have problems having overall success. Being a baseball coach and a softball coach for many years, being a college professor, if I went into a classroom and expected everybody to learn the same way, hear the information the same way, interpret what I'm telling them the same way, I am going to have a large fail rate because everybody is wired differently. I think that is such an important trait to be an effective coach, to be an effective instructor, whatever it is that you're doing. And I'm using this because it's like, I hope that my listeners gain something from every episode that they can apply to their own life. And as true as that is to your students, it's also true to kids. You may have 3, 4, 5 kids at your house that you've, produced, and every one of them have their own unique style and personality about them. So where do you think it came from you to be able to recognize that each person that comes to you You're going to have to just evaluate and then adjust to be able to pull their strengths out stronger and then recognize where their weaknesses are, where maybe sometimes it's challenging where they're doing a lap. And maybe the inner part of you is like, dude, get over here and be still. Let's listen. But you know that's not going to be effective with that kid. So where do you think that came from?
Just years, experience. And then I did do some training with my work. We did some, where, for employees, like, that, hey, each person, has a different, different. We did do some, training for that kind of stuff too. Like each person has a different thing. Like, certain people, you got to yell at, like, oh, you got to get this stuff done. They need that, just that.
They need
raw.
that. Some of them do.
Some people need that just that yell, constant yell. And then some people, like, you need to put your arm around, like, hey, we need to do this. You kind of, it's a balance. Mm-hmm. And knowing which person to do it and seeing their what type of person they are. And I did the whole personality chart and all that kind of good stuff. But which mine was like 4 of them I was up above 50%, and they're like, and the guy looked at me. He was like, I forget what he was. I think he said I probably talked to my voices in my head or something. I was like, well, probably so, but and just because that's everything, like, even the dominant red, I had a dominant blue, I had a dominant, everything was up high, So I think it's just the way I'm wired too. Is just I was made to do what I'm doing. Is truly was. That way I can see that. I can see the like the fiery red. I can see that if you need me to yell, like, in the moments I do need to. Mm-hmm. I had one of my guys, JJ. He broke his hand the first round in a fight. And he was sitting there looking at me. He's like, man, I broke my hand. And I'm like, and at first I was like, man, my gut just started to fall out. I'm like, oh no, what am I doing? And then it just clicked. I'm like, he don't need me to go down and hear it down. I'm like, you only get a minute between fights.
Yeah.
Between rounds.
Yeah.
And you got 1 minute. So I'm like, I got to push all this into this one moment. And all this is just like, I got to process this, figure out what, evaluate the situation, and then put it all in this minute. And so I'm like sitting there, and then I'm like, man. And then I'm like, if I look down and I look sad, he's going to be sad and he's going to lose. Mm. And so I'm like, and I just got fired up. I was like, of course, I'm not going to cuss on here, but I was cussing at the moment. But I was like, forget your hand. Mm-hmm. I said, you got a other one, you got your feet. Mm-hmm. I said, forget your hand. You just go. I said, you don't want me to call this thing? Let's do it. And he was like, yeah. And he kind of parked up and everything. And, I've had to do that before, and there's moments of, having that moment of, a fighter's down, like, oh, I'm like, you're the man. Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, I'm the man. I'm like, let me hear it. And he just like, once they hear it, I'm like, oh, okay, it's on now. He finally like, woke back up.
It's like an injection of energy.
It is. And then I'm like, okay, we're good now. And so, it's knowing that time frame, and then knowing that, like, okay, I need to, the mentoring, it's time to do the mentoring side, pull them to the side. And all right, I need to be the buddy. I need to, the shoulder to listen to, or if they need to cry, or whatever the situation is, mm-hmm. Life, knowing that balance of when to do it and when to not do it. It's a hard thing. I mean, it's absolutely one of the hardest things. It's to balance that show, and you don't want to go too far on either side.
That's true.
If you go too far on either side, you run people off too. And so it's a balancing out.
I feel like, you mentioned that you feel like it was just who you are. And there's a huge element of intuition that a person has to be born with. You're right about the personality traits as well. A person that's very introverted, that is reserved, shy, if you will, it's hard for them to be somebody different than who they are. And so whenever it comes to coaching, mentorship in particular, you really do have to have a certain genetic makeup, I think. Not to say that anybody is limited according to anything, but I am telling you that there is something there. What you're saying, the great coaches, anybody could probably, in quotes, be a coach, but the great coaches have what you're talking about, is that knowledge of the moment. and the balance of the reaction. I will give a quick example, cross-relating. In my classroom, as a semester goes on, there are certain common factors. Once you get to certain points in the semester, people are tired, they're wore down, they don't want to keep going. So you need a group pump up. But then the other aspect to that is you also got to pay attention to each individual student. I like to refer to them as players. They call me coach in the classroom, by the way, Ricky. I'm coach everywhere I go in my life. Coach camp is not a gimmick. It is who I am. And so I will pay attention to what you're saying, the body language, maybe the voice inflection when you ask a question to someone. And then I will do those individual moments. So you have the team aspect where sometimes you just got to be the person you need to be in that moment for the whole team. But then you also need to pay attention to the individual players. And that's when you pull them over to the side. And you got to have the right thing to say at the right time to the right person. And that takes time and that does take practice, but that takes that unique sixth sense that a person must have if you're going to be an effective, great coach. The great coaches are never forgotten. The players will change their entire lives. Their entire path could be changed forever off of one moment. And that's not something that I'm overstating. I have witnessed it. I have players come back to me 10, 15 years later I've coached and be like, Coach, when you did this in this game, these things happened and I never forgot it. And I'll be like, I don't remember that. But I am so glad it had an impact for you because I don't remember every moment, and every moment that matters to someone else doesn't always hit with me at that time that was important. That's why you got to try to be on point all the time. And I'm going to hit this part, but then I want to roll into my next question for you. But I love the fact too, I didn't want to go past it, where you said that you empowered sometimes the person that's maybe causing a riff, if you will. There's so much value to that. I encourage every coach out there that's listening to this right now, or anybody that's in a leadership position, if you have somebody, maybe they got a lot of energy, maybe they are even being distracted. I mean, like they are disrupting the thing. Sometimes pulling them aside and instead of chastising them, empowering them and explaining to them how important they are to that role, that's sometimes what a person needs as well. That's a confidence builder. And so that's where I want to transition this next part to is I clearly would agree. I would clearly think at this point that you understand what you're doing with each kid as you teach them. You're building something bigger than just Jiu Jitsu. You're building life confidence, something that gives them the ability to believe in themselves, maybe even when no one else does. And that's something that everybody needs, is the ability to believe in themselves. Even if everybody's saying you're crazy, you can't do it, there's a part where you need to say, hold my beer, and then just go do it. So can you give an example or a story of a person that you've seen transition out of martial arts, but then they've went on to do big things in life, and you could attribute that? Because I can think of several from baseball and softball, and I know I'm putting you on the spot on that question. It's a big question, but I'm just curious if you have like that big story of that person that was like, man, they started excelling here and now they're doing this in life.
Well, I mean, I've known several, I guess, I've known people, I've trained with over the years. I know like Matt Weibel, he turned around, he started out, he actually fought amateur for a little bit. And then he put his foot in the door where he was matchmaking for Summit, and then now he's actually working for one of the largest managing companies for fighters and stuff. And so he took that that martial arts and everything, and actually he's also a police officer also, and he took that that doorway of opening up that doorway to martial arts and actually followed his dreams, and and now he's on the same management team. That has John Jones and all the other big, big fighters and stuff. So it's, you can take these, the life lessons and the martial arts, and you could, that's just, one concept of, but using it to go just build yourself. And like, plus like the beauty of training is like, hey, if you have a bad day, we had guys like come in like, even on jiu-jitsu days, they go over there and they start beating, the hell out of the punching bag. And it's like, and I'm sitting there and they boom, 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 boom. And then I'm like, afterward, like, I was like, you feel better? And like, yeah, I feel better now. So
it's cathartic.
It is. I mean, and it's better. I've had bad days, but like when I was just training, and I'm like, man, I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to do this today. And then as soon as you get there and afterwards, like, I'm glad I did, because you're able to, all that negative energy, you can turn and use it for a positive. And it's like, it's okay. If you got negative energy, you got negative stuff going on. It happens. It's life. That's the way it is. But you can turn around and take this negative energy and you can turn it into a positive. I can use, okay, hey, I'm having rough days. Let me, let's spar a little harder today. Like, okay. And they just say, and they understand. I say, they understand. And one of the other guys or whatever, like, oh, I understand what you're saying, but boom. And then y'all were, you punch it out. And then you can let all that energy, that negative energy out, and it's not holding down on you. If you just hold all that negative energy down, it just brings your shoulder down, brings you down, causes depression, it causes all kinds of health issues. And instead of having all that issues, that's why people go to the gym and lift weights. Like, hey, I'm mad, I'm okay, I'm gonna go there. And if that's what you need to do, that's good too. Jiu Jitsu is not for everybody. Martial arts is not, but you need that avenue for that pathway. If you go ride your bicycle or go to the park or whatever you got to do to escape that negativity and release it, because if you hold on to it, it's just, you just see people this sad.
It's a killer.
It is. It will absolutely kill you.
Yeah, there's the comment of training your mind, body, and soul, and so often it is all interrelated. You were exactly right. You have a stressful day, stressful life going on, things going out of whack. That's the one thing that you can control is your physical aspect. You may not be able to control certain aspects of life. That's just given. That's a given. But you focusing on you sometimes is the best thing you need to do. So going and physically exerting yourself, whether it is doing some kind of MMA training, as an example, or you just want to go for a long, hard run. You're out there just hammering the pavement, as they say. Those moments are cathartic, but then it also resets your mind and it'll give you mental clarity and it will give you the stress relief you need. So it's not just physically healthy, it's mentally healthy. You need those things. And then the byproduct a lot of times does come with confidence. And I want to just touch back on one thing that you said earlier too. It's about the growth mechanism. How many times have we all had this moment where you see somebody and in your mind, that person, and I'm talking about a child, is the same height, the same age in your head because you haven't seen them in 5-6 years. All of a sudden you run into them. Now they're 3 foot taller and they have a deep voice and they've got a beard bigger than yours. And you're like, dang, when did this happen? They don't know that they were growing like that. But it's clear to you because you hadn't seen them in a while. I think that's so true because when you're growing and in the moment, you're not seeing the gains that you're getting. And that's why it's so important to reflect back. It's so important to have a process and to continue. And I just want to touch too that you said sometimes you don't want to work out. I've always told myself this. On the days I really don't want to do the thing that I've set out to do, those are the most important. Anybody can do something you want to do because you want to do it. If I feel great that day and just want to go for a 5-mile run and go do the 5-mile run, I didn't lose the benefit of running, but I didn't push through and have that mental connection of, man, I had to force myself on that one. But whenever I really don't want to do it and I make myself go do it, it's just a different feeling when it's done. You look back and you're like, I gained something today. There's something extra on this one because I really didn't want to go do that. That is, my friends, why you need something in your life that keeps you focused and challenged. And it doesn't have to be MMA, but it could be anything that you find an interest in, but you have to be challenged by it. So I want to ask you these things. I always try to do a little research here. You have some nicknames.
Mm-hmm.
I see that they call you the Legend, the Ghost, and the Demolition Man. Can you explain those?
And Uncle Ricky. A lot of people call me Uncle Ricky.
Uncle Ricky.
Yeah, I got a lot of Uncle Ricky. People older than me call me Uncle Ricky. It's just, just one of them things. I'll always be there for, kind of the helpful uncle. The Legend is part of my early 20s, I guess, raising, doing stupid stuff. And one of my friends who's actually not here anymore, he passed away last year. He gave me that nickname, and so it kind of stuck with the Legend and stuff, just because I was no fear. I did some crazy stuff. I won't get into what I did, but
Evil Knievel.
Yeah, there's lots of. A friend of mine calls them Uncle Ricky stories, and I got a lot of Uncle Ricky stories, and I'm like, well, some of them are like, well, why don't you tell some of them? I was like, well, I'll tell some of them. I said, but my mom's gonna listen, and so she don't need to hear all my Uncle Ricky stories. She already stressed out enough about what I do, and so I don't want to freak her out no more. But the Demolition Man is just, and I've always been good at just tearing stuff up. It's a joke. Me and my brother, we turn around, and when we can like, you turn around, and I joke, I probably can destroy a steel ball with a rubber mallet. I probably, if I give enough chance, I can do it. It's
my brother has kids like that. I can understand.
Yeah, I can tear some stuff up. I really can if I try. And I have fun with it. It's just like, yeah. I mean, me and my brother, we had a building at work one day. We're like, hey, we'll just tear that up. Like, okay. So we went there with sledgehammers and grabbed this, just destroyed it. And then,
so it's not just a cool name; it's actual earned name. So
yeah. It's nothing. It's nothing. It's just stuff I've through my life, and the ghost is just me. I mean, just kind of, I guess, is it kind of a joke, but his nickname I got just from I'm there, poof, I'm not there for a while, but when when you need me, poof, I pop back up, just out of nowhere, and it seems like it's wild. I've had it happen so many times, like I hadn't seen somebody around, and something happened, and then boom, I'm right there, and it was like, it's, and I remember a friend saying that the other day. He's like, well, Ricky's here when we need him. I was like, I just kind of took, I was like, I guess I am. I was like, that made me take back, even I'm like, I didn't think nothing about it. It's like, hey, y'all need my help? I'm here. It's just who I am. It is what it is. And even though I hadn't seen them in a while, whatever, and they need my help, I was like, all right, here I am. And then, but that's kind of what they were, but yeah, they're all earned. There was nothing, just.
There's stories behind them.
For sure.
That's good stuff. Well, Ricky, we are close to the end here. I do appreciate your time. Great whole history of you, because the bottom line is this: we need more mentors out there that are having an impact in our community. And there are a lot of different ways that people can do that. You don't have to be the richest person. You don't have to be the smartest person. You don't have to be famous. You could start small and have a huge impact. You've been doing that for some time. So 2 things I want to finish with. One, I want to ask you, what are your last thoughts? We're going to start with that. So what are your last thoughts? What advice would you give somebody out there? And then we'll finish with you talking about how somebody could get in touch with you, or how they could become a part of what you do down in Senatobia. So real quick, what final advice would you give my listeners and viewers?
I would say don't overestimate the small stuff. Like I wanted to tell this story right here, because you're looking at, I had a chance interaction with a child years ago. My mom used to be a librarian before she retired, and I was in her library visiting my mom. This young kid was there. He was 7 or 8, I guess, or 9. I don't remember exactly how old he was, but he was talking to me, and kids, they start talking to me. I'm not going to be like, get out of here, kid. I'm like, I'll talk back with him. I'm like, hey, I ain't gonna be rude to nobody just because, well, as a kid, I'm not going to be rude to him. He turn around and he do stuff like that. He start being rude to kids, then they have that whole mental, well, I don't need to talk to adults because they're going to be rude to me. And it's just, put that negative influence them to them. And he talked to me, and my mom was right there, and she said something about me doing, Jiu Jitsu and MMA and all that. And she was like, and he started talking to me and asked me questions, and I talked to him for a little while, and then I went on my day. And then turned around, he actually, after talking to me, he got with his parents and started doing Taekwondo and started training. And as far as I know, to this day, he's still training. But because of a chance meeting with me, opened up a doorway of a mindset of, that he's, continuing down. So just, don't overlook, just I would say don't overlook, just at little chance meetings and, you're talking to people, just, try not to be a jerk, just to be a jerk. You never know how you will influence somebody's life, even in a small moment, just a small little chance moment. Try to be the best you can be, to everybody, if somebody's, if somebody's being a total jerk or whatever, it is what it is. But, and even if you're having a bad day, that don't mean you got to take it out on anybody else. Just sit there and try to be you just, and they still, even if I'm having a bad day, and then somebody just, asks me a bunch of random little questions, man, I really don't want to answer these random little questions, but I'm going to do what is right. In that moment I could be, it could, I could change somebody's life. And
you never know what influence you're given, and you're planting seeds. And that happened with you, sir, with a simple flyer at Baskin-Robbins. They had 31 flavors. Dr. Pepper has 23 flavors. And I don't know how many flavors Ricky Pike has. Maybe you add those two things together and you got 54. But in the end, my friend, you are planting seeds and you're having an impact out there. And you're absolutely right. Always take advantage of a moment that you could leave a positive something behind, because you don't know how much of an impact that may end up having. If somebody wants to join the Senatobia Jiu Jitsu or learn more about Ricky Pike, how could they do that?
We have a website, allheartgym.com. We are on the Facebook, the Instagram. You can check us out, All Heart Jiu Jitsu. You can come on down. We do free lessons, free classes, for first time. Just come down there and try it out, see if you want to have fun. We do have, we got classes Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. We had some people want to go to church on Wednesdays. And so I was like, well, all right, we'll shift schedules around. And so, but we might, coming up pretty soon, I'm trying to do some moving and move my house and downsizing and all kinds of good fun stuff I'm doing. At the same time, I'm got a full busy life. I'm with the gym, and then I do my own podcast, and then plus I'm trying to move and build a house, and it's a
you need a couple more irons in the fire.
I think so. So, but it's fun, just keep on going, and I just keep on keeping on. But just come check us out if you want to. We got a great crew down there. I've been doing jiu-jitsu almost 17 years now. First degree black belt, so I can show you something, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure. There's lots to learn and plenty to do. And in the end, sir, keep doing what you do. That's what I want to encourage you, sir. Keep going the path, because you are having an impact 100%. Well, thank you, Ricky, for coming down to the studio today, taking a little bit of time out of this beautiful day. We've got plenty of it left. Hopefully the sunshine sticks around for a few more days. We need that. And I look forward to seeing what else comes as I follow you, sir. I'm going to be following the jiu-jitsu. I got Connie down there that he's doing his gym, Fitness 2000, and I'm a big fan of Senatobia. So you guys keep on doing that thing.
Appreciate. Yeah, Connie Burton's awesome. He helps a lot of people, and I'm glad I'm in the same building with Connie, and we work with each other. A lot of parents, and it's something else. If you would come down, you can actually, if you can come up there and you can drop your kids off with me and then go downstairs and work out with Connie. You can get that fitness in. You can work out the weights or do one of his Tabo classes or his hip hop classes. He's got all kinds of stuff. He's got a lot of programs. And so at the same time, while your kids are getting learning martial arts, so you can turn around and you can actually do well on yourself. So it's if you don't want to do the martial arts, we got lots of programs right there, and that's at Fitness 2000, and with All Heart Jiu Jitsu, we can help everybody do everything.
It's a great team. Well, thank you so much, sir. I want to tell my listeners and viewers, thank you guys so much for coming in every single Monday to watch and comment and like, and I appreciate every single time. I'm going to ask you, go to my website, motivatewithcoachcamp.com, subscribe to my YouTube, and until next time, Coach Camp out.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want, and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no, I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's time shape